Welcome to the Savvy Property Investors Podcast, a weekly show that delivers the best hard-hitting property industry news, business advice, and talks that will get you ascending in the real estate industry. Now, here's your host, the amazing award-winning property and business coach, best-selling author, and serial entrepreneur, Miss Sapphire Gray.
Hello and welcome to the Savvy Property Investors Show, episode 8. Today's topic is how to find lease options and do creative deals. And our special guest today is Chris Hawthorne from Changing Spaces and the Wealth Hub. So, welcome to another Property Investors Show. Our guest this week is Chris Hawthorne, HE. He will be sharing with his insights on how to find lease options and do creative deals. Today, we welcome Chris Hawthorne. Chris has been in the property space for years, beginning his first ever business at just 20 years old. A UK-based furniture specialist, investor, and a managing director of investment fund, the Wealth Hub. Chris has over 20 years of property and business experience to his name. The owner of the market-leading nationwide furniture and interior design business, Changing Space. Chris knows what his clientele and tenants want, and he had no plans on stopping there. Chris has built a property portfolio with a net worth of 4.45 million and has done over 60 creative deals and lease option transactions. He currently has 25 active lease options and creative deals in his portfolio and has renovated numerous projects, ranging from small budgets to large on each deal. With 15 service apartments, Chris still finds the time to be a dad and a loving husband to his wife, who he speaks of very dearly. I am Sapphire Gray, your host, so let's get started. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, brilliant. And I see that you're a loving father and husband as well. So that's really kudos to you as well. I love family dynamics and while doing a business as well, because that can really take up our time. But you have found the time and the energy to love on your family. And I give kudos to you on that. So thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
So,
thank you.
Chris, I really want to get a real good understanding of what actually lease options are. So can you explain to our listeners, what is a lease option?
Okay, yeah. So basically a lease option it's a legally binding paperwork system, like a contract, just like a normal contract for sale. But it allows you to control an asset rather than buying it and to profit from that. So it gives you the legal rights to buy that property within the terms you set out, but you haven't got the obligation to buy it. So you can back out if you want. So it gives you a lot of power, basically. They're very quick and easy to do. And yeah, it allows you to basically control an asset and profit from it without buying it.
Excellent. So what is the key terms that, the 4 key terms that you need to break down this agreement, sort of like the monthly charges, the buying prices, those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've agreed with a client that that's the kind of process you're going to go through and that's the kind of vehicle you're going to use, yeah, absolutely. There's key things you need to agree on. So the first one is, what you're going to pay them. So I usually like to just pay their mortgage if you can, but every deal's different, and different situations, different scenarios. And if you can just be paying their mortgage payment, you're getting that for the lowest price possible. You're controlling the asset for the lowest price possible. So then you need to agree on a term that you're going to buy that property within, or you've got the right to buy the property within. And that can be anything. I don't really touch property deals like this less than 2 years. So I go 3 years plus. 3 to 5 years with what I do with sandwich lease options is kind of the sweet spot for me. So you agree the term and then you agree the price that you'll pay them within that term. So it's the monthly payment you're paying them, the term, and then what you will pay as a sale price. And the only other thing then I suppose is if they want some money out of the deal. So say if they've got some equity in the deal and they want say 5,000 out of it, you've got to assess then whether you want to give them that 5,000. You can maybe break that into a payment plan, but that's the only other portion of it really. If there's equity in the deal for them and they want some out and you're happy to do that, then that needs to be agreed on as well.
Okay, so in what real circumstances would an investor go for a lease option?
Well, I mean, when I first started learning these creative strategies, probably about 15, 16 years ago now, I thought, why would anyone go for these? You know, I just thought, you know, it's just, but I was really excited about them. You know, I learned the trade, and, you know, you go to your first appointments and your first meetings and you make mistakes and you think, oh, you know, it's going wrong, but you kind of learn from those and then you get better and better at it. And then, you know, no one forgets their first deal. I remember when someone agreed to go ahead with it after, you know, like I said, a lot of painful situations, but you do grow and learn from those. And, you know, people basically need to be motivated to go for a creative deal. So, and what I mean by that, I don't mean to take advantage of them.
Yes.
They need to know where they're going, what goal they've got. So an unmotivated person would be, I mean, I get people phoning me up saying, oh, I'm thinking about putting my property on the market. Well, you know, fair enough. That's not for me. I'll just direct them to an estate agent or something like that. They don't really know where their goal is. Whereas someone that's motivated, they might be needing to move house quickly, job move, moving country, you know, financial problems, anything like that. They know what they need to achieve and what timescale they need to achieve that. And so that's where that motivation comes from. And when that's there, you can, you know, suggest solutions to them that are on the creative side of things that would actually be more beneficial than if they were to just go through a straightforward transaction through an estate agent, which, oh my goodness, I just cannot believe it takes so long still. I mean, I sold one of my lease options recently, you know, through a normal estate agent, through the normal process, and it took 8 to 9 months to go through.
Wow.
I transacted that property in like a couple of days, you know, to do the lease option, and it took 9 months to go through, which in this day and age, I'm still blown away at how archaic that is.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's lost time for a lot of people. If they're facing financial problems, they can't wait 9 months. They'll just get the house taken off them. So it's situations like that. They don't necessarily have to be negative equity. I know, again, a lot of people think lease options are only for negative equity properties, but it's all about asking the right questions. When you do marketing, I always say, you know, cast the net far and wide. You're looking for motivated people to, like I said, not take advantage of them, but to help them. And when you ask the right questions and you're talking to these people, you're finding out exactly what their problem is. And you've got these strategies in your head, and you can best serve your clients then, and you can fit a solution exactly around the problem they're facing. So it's not a kind of one size fits all, but through the questions you ask people, you find out what situation they're in, and then you can propose your solution to them. And lease options are very flexible in kind of creating a solution for a lot of people in different situations.
Yeah, so what are some of the sort of reasons why people would agree, like a house owner would agree to a lease option? Because you just touched on, you know, not taking advantage of them, and I don't end up believing that anyway. But people get themselves in situations where they need somebody to help them. And I think what your approach is brilliant, because you're going in there and trying to establish, how can I best help this person out of this situation? So what are some of the reasons why people would agree to a lease option?
Okay, so I mean, a prime one is someone facing financial problems. So a lot of people, if they're facing financial problems, they kind of bury their head in the sand a lot of the time, and they kind of try and ignore the situation. And, you know, it gets to a point where maybe repossession proceedings have started. And, you know, I've dealt with a lot of people like this where they just leave it to the last minute, to the point where, I mean, sometimes it's days before the bailiffs come in. So there's no way they can sell that property. They can't even sell it at an auction because, you know, it's just too late. Whereas, you know, even if it's gone to, or if it's at court, I can go to court with them and say, look, this is what we're doing, and stop the proceedings there. And then it can be that close to the wire with a lease option or a creative strategy. So that's a key one, really, people that are in financial problems. And again, I really stress that these people are very, very vulnerable. You know, it's not a time to take it. I know we're on the same page here, and a lot of people are. It's not a time to take advantage of them. And that's the beauty of creative strategies, because you don't have to. You don't have to come in with some stupid low ball offer to try and, you know, or chip them on, you know, exchange day or whatever, you know, all those little tricks that people, I've been an estate agent, you know, I've seen them all really, and it's sickening, a lot of them. But
it really is.
You don't have to do that with creative strategies. If there's, you know, I'm not a charity, obviously I need to earn money as well, but if there's money in it for me and I can help that person and, you know, solve a problem or get some money out of for them, then great. That's why I like these so much, because I know it's a cliche, the win-win solution, but really you can usually get a solution on the table that both parties are happy with. You haven't got one person walking away thinking, actually, I think I've been ripped off there, but I'm vulnerable and I've got no other choice. I wouldn't want that. So that's a prime situation, people facing financial problems. But then motivation can come in all different forms. People just might want to sell the property quickly to get money out. They don't want to take a low cash offer, or the money they've got in the property is more important than the speed of sale. So if I can do a lease option with them, I can potentially give them more money for the property because it's over a period of time. And they're happy with that, especially if they're getting some maybe monthly income from it, or they've got a kind of balloon payment at the end where they'll get cut into the equity. Another great one with these creative strategies, it doesn't really matter whether the market's going up, down, or sideways. You just change the strategy slightly. So lease options per se are good to when the property market's kind of plateaued or going down, generally speaking, but they can be used in other situations. I use an assisted sale. I don't really done any assisted sales at all. So it's a lease option agreement, but you're joint venturing with the seller. So this is great when the market's going up. So a prime example is auction properties that maybe haven't sold, or probate properties where it's been left to someone where they don't really know what to do with it. They want the most money from it. It's their mom and dad's house. There's a lot of emotion involved, but they don't want to necessarily sell it to a developer or an investor that's going to come in really low and just rip it apart. An assisted sale is you use a lease option because you're going to control that asset, but you're joint venturing with the seller to do the property up and then sell it in a really nice state, furnished and everything like a show home. So you're getting the maximum price, and then you split the profits between me and the person with the house. So it sits well with a lot of people. Great for estate agents as well, because they can be cutting, they get a property that's saleable and they're going to sell it much quicker, bigger fee, So that assisted sale is great for that kind of type of property, any kind of refurb models, or like I said, auction lots that haven't sold, anything like that. So, and then if, people, like I said, moving, I deal with people that are moving abroad or a job move or something like that. And again, they've got a certain date to move by, and they're sort of panicking a bit. And, when you sit down with them and say, look, I could do this, a lot of the time they're like, really? How? Why? Why would you do that? It's too good to be true. I get that all the time. So, well, I wouldn't say it if I couldn't do it. So that's what I can do. Would that be something that would interest you? And 9 times out of 10, if it's matched, my solutions match their problem, what are they going to say? They're going to say,
yes.
Okay, let's go for it. So it suits a lot of situations, but they have to be motivated, the people.
I know in the last couple of recessions back, when I was buying properties, and there was a lot of people that was in financial constraints as well. And I had to do lots of court visits at that time. I haven't done none on recent, but I had to do it at that time to just stop the process of it going to court. And they were very appreciative of me coming in and stepping in to help not only save the property, but save them the anguish and the embarrassment of sort of having to move out, family seeing what they're doing, and so I really get why people will gravitate to it, and being divorced, all these kind of different things. You talked about probate properties. Those are really good reasons why people would get into lease options or creative deals as well.
Definitely. I mean, with people getting, you brushed on people getting divorced. Well, I've done a few where people have been getting divorced. The only thing with lease options is they're still on the mortgage until it completes. They're still on the mortgage, so you have to tread carefully. The ones I've done, it's quite an amicable split. But let's face it, most divorces or separations aren't amicable. So if they hate each other, then they don't really want to be tied. So you can pick and choose, which ones you do really. They do work really well sometimes when people are separating, but sometimes they're just not a solution for people, unfortunately.
You talked about casting the net. How does people find these type of people that they can assist? How do you market yourself, and how do you get yourself out there to? I use loads of different techniques in marketing. It's such a big field, isn't it? So I do on and offline marketing now. So over the years, the online's become more kind of prevalent, really, for obvious reasons. But still do lots of business cards and flyers, networking meetings. Estate agents are a great resource, really great resource, especially in certain areas, because you're leveraging
their time and expertise, and it's a great thing to do because they can get properties for you constantly. If you crack them, they are sometimes hard to crack, especially the corporates. More independent ones are slightly easier, but it's just perseverance, like anything, and a numbers game. Marketing is always a numbers game. If you get on well with an estate agent, that can be like a golden goose, laying golden eggs every time. And it is just perseverance. And some estate agents are nicer than others. Some have a bit of a chip on the shoulder. It's fine. They're just human beings. You just need to find the ones that work well for you and sort of nurture that relationship, really. If a property's on with an estate agent for sale and rental, well, that's a perfect lease option right there, because it's normally a landlord that thinks, oh, the market's gone up, let's sell it. So the tenant moves out. It hasn't sold within a month. They've realised there's no rent coming in. They've got the mortgage to pay, council tax, all this. Like, put it back on the rental market. So they kind of panic a bit, and that does happen quite a lot. Well, if that's the situation, a landlord knows the rental model. They're trying to sell it as well. So you're kind of marrying the two, and that's quite a good way of getting properties over the line like this. Other than that, Facebook, social networks, YouTube, anything like that, really. You can do really good campaigns and get, kind of sales funnels going for people with motivation. If it's not in your area, you can sell the deal on. But with lease options, you can generally do them. You don't have to be in the area. That's the beauty as well, because I kind of specialised in the sandwich lease option. So you acquire a property on a lease option, but you sell it on a lease option to what I call a tenant buyer. And there's so many benefits to that. It's really good. You're not keeping the property long term, but there's so many benefits to it. There's three like pots of cash really for me. There's money up front, there's cash flow, and there's usually back end money. And you don't hear anything from the tenant buyers. That's why I say you don't have to be in the area, because they're buying that property. They look after it. They never phone me, so it's a really good strategy. I've kind of favoured that over the years, just because the area I live in and HMOs and SAs didn't really necessarily work in the immediate area I live in.
And it always helps as well when you've got tenant buyers, because it's the easiest way for them to actually get onto the property ladder with a break clause. So if their affordability 3 years down the line is still not there, they still have that option whether to pull out. They've done the work on the property. They've done what they needed to do. They've paid their fees. So they've got that option. And then the option is then to sell the property, so you're included in the deal at every stage. So I think for me that I like that one as well, because it
me too.
Someone off, getting onto the property ladder in a way that they can say, I own this house so long as I go through this process. And give them 3 years to build up credit. 3 years to build up that deposit as well. So they've really been able to really manage their expenses, manage their credit ratings and everything else over a period of time. Having their own home. And who would want their own home,
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's a real feel good. The amount of hugs and high fives I've had from, and I love that. Who wouldn't? So it's really simple, really. The sandwich lease up. You're basically taking a property, or solving a problem for someone that doesn't want a property. And there's lots of people like that. And then you look on the other side, and there's loads of people that want to get on the property ladder. And it's just like most of the biggest businesses in this world, they're middle people, aren't they? They're affiliates or whatever. They don't manufacture or make anything. It's kind of information based, and you're just putting that information together and sort of transacting it, really. So it's quite a simple process, but it's great, isn't it? It really is great.
Broking a deal, you're basically saying I'm the broker between this, and yes, the sandwich deal. There's so much ways of looking at it, but you're helping somebody, assisting someone, helping the person who actually owns the home, and both of you're broking that relationship between the two of them, so that they can benefit both. It's a triple win-win.
It is. It is definitely. As well, the way I started off, because when I first learned about these, one thing I was terrified about is taking on loads of people's mortgages. I was like, oh my God, if I get to, and what ifs. I've got better sort of mindset now. But also you try and protect yourself, don't you? So the beauty about strategies like this, I started off doing finding tenant buyers for landlords. So there was absolutely no risk for me. It was a complete upside, tiny bit of marketing. I mean, the first deal I got, I put a little postcard thing in the bus stop opposite the property. Cost me 5p, something like that. And and I got a buyer straight away, and he couldn't sell that property on a tenant buyer model. And I think for that one, I think it was $4,000 or something like that for nothing, basically. No risk to me. Obviously, I did the work. I got the, I sold the prom, but there was no risk to me, no financial outlay or anything like that. And then I did a few of those and I thought, hold on, this is great. It taught me that tenant buyers were actually quite easy to find. It's the properties that are possibly slightly more difficult. So I thought, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table here, for want of a better word. Why don't I just go it, full hog and go for it? So I started, doing the whole thing then. So taking the property off the land, rather than finding them a tenant buyer, agreeing a deal with them, and then I would, benefit from the tenant buyer coming in and, take the mortgage on. And that just comes with confidence. But it's great because you can start off with zero risk, basically. Brilliant.
Oh, that's brilliant. So join us after the break with more insights from Chris.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button below. Our podcast is only made possible by great listeners like you.
Welcome back, and thank you for being with us, Chris. You've given us some fantastic insights in our first half of the show, and I'm even learning along this as well, and sort of things are really coming back home to me on the different strategies out there still. I mean, I teach various strategies, but talking about lease options and creative deals has really ignited me again to think actually that I am actually leaving money on the table myself. I need to get back into this as well. So thanks for sort of like igniting me again to really get myself moving in that direction again.
It's a pleasure.
Can you talk to us about some of the risk or mistakes associated with a lease option? Because there's the upside of being positive, but then surely there must be some risk or mistakes people could make doing this kind of strategy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, from an investor's point of view, doing a lease option, and I'm talking from experience here, don't promise things you can't do. Everyone wants that first deal over the line, but I mean, I did a deal, back in the day, 10, 12 years ago that I wouldn't touch now. I wouldn't touch it, but it was a high mortgage. It was all the things I tell people not to do now. And, like I said, I can talk from experience because I've been there and done it. It worked out okay, but if the market would have faltered, I would have been in, I would have had to walk away from the deal. I don't want to do that because, I'm there to solve people's problems and see it through, basically. So don't promise things you can't fulfill on. So a prime one is, just to get the deal over the line, don't say some crazy sale price, that it's never going to stack up unless you've got like a 30-year lease option. So, if it's a 3 to 5 year lease option, don't say a crazy sale price. It's got to stack up. As a rule of thumb, I generally add, 5 to 7% on the sale price. And, always get the client represented. So I represent myself now, and I always get the client represented. Now, they might not want to be represented and they can sign a waiver, but if that goes to court for whatever reason, say it's gone up $100,000 in 5 years' time, and they want a bit of that. Well, if they're not properly legally represented, they can dispute that and they probably will win in court. Whereas, so what I do now, I pay for their legal fees, like a lot of people do now. It's £500 to £700, and it gets them independently, legally represented. So they know exactly what's going on. There's no comeback from that because their solicitor is on their side and they've explained everything. So if that does go to court, the likelihood I would win the case because they've been properly represented. So I would always say that. Now, I have done deals that that hasn't been the case just because I picked them up for £1. Literally, I've had to put £1 into the deal. They wanted it done quickly. They didn't want to be legally represented. So you've got to take a judgment on that. If there's a lot of equity in it, or potential growth, I would say anyway, always get it legally represented. But, that's people's call, really. I know I have in the past. I know other people that have made the call, not to do that. But because, especially when you're investing in an area that has got growth, like London, for instance.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
People's situations change. They might be motivated now, but in 5 years' time, they're sitting a bit kind of prettier, aren't they? The pressure's off and they're like, hold on. That's gone up $100,000. I'd like some of that. And they will dispute it. So they're really the pitfalls. Don't kind of overpromise things and say things you can't fulfill on, and get them legally represented.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the key thing here is making sure that both sides, yourself and the seller, is represented well. and they're covered, because years will go past, and equity growth does happen. And if they're looking at that and thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But, because you're legally represented, your legal advice was given, you've signed a contract, we're binded. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's your flexibility whether you say, you know what, I'm prepared to give an extra over and above.
Yeah.
It's your decision at the end of the day, but that you've got a contract in place, but you can say, you know what, this has gone up more than what we expected. Here, I'm giving you something as a little bonus to say,
absolutely. I think
that you're not really feeling that you lost.
I think that's a really good point, because some people, not just in the property industry, but generally can be a bit greedy. Yes. And like you said, you need to sometimes take a step back, or have a third party say, hold on, you're making 100 grand on that, and you didn't put any money in. Cut people in. I always think that, if there's an issue with the property, people want to come out, legally, I don't have to give them any money back, a tenant buyer, but I always do, because, it's just word of mouth. If they, it goes around very quickly. If a few deals go sour and I haven't given them the money back, it's their narrative saying, Chris Hawthorne's done this, done that. Whereas if I give them the money back, they'll be singing my praises. Oh yeah, I did this, didn't work out, I got my money back. And if I'm going to get another tenant buyer in there and get the money back myself, why wouldn't I give it them back? I'm not in the, it's just about looking after people, isn't it? Like everything in life, it's relationships, isn't it? with people, and just, looking after people and kind of service to others, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's some pros to going into a lease option for an investor, one being financial, but what are some other positives that's going in for an investor doing a lease option or creative?
So with creative deals, you can do them a lot quicker. So you can do a lot more deals. You don't have to put really much money into them generally, so you can transact properties much quicker, have more deals on the go, whether they're lease options or assisted sales or anything like that. And it just gives you a lot more kind of speed and flexibility. I mean, say you were buying a buy-to-let property, and you had to put 50 grand in, that's what, and you've got 50 grand to put into it. That's your budget. You do one property, but you could do 10 lease options, putting 5 grand into them. If you put in less than that, you can do a lot more lease options. So the leverage is kind of exponential, really, with doing these creative strategies. You can do a lot more. And it's like the barriers kind of come up a little bit, and you're kind of free to go, because like any business model, not just property, but if you're selling stuff on Amazon, for instance, and you're doing private label stuff, you probably get one product done every 6 months. But if you use slightly different models, like the partnership model, like lease option, anything like that, where you can just do multiple deals at the same time, I personally think it's a lot better, because you've got a lot more leverage. You're putting the same amount of time in, but you've got a lot more leverage. I mean, Branson's a prime example of that. It's just, he's got the same amount, or Warren Buffett, they've got the same amount of hours in the day as everyone else. They seem to massively leverage things, don't they, in their favor. So it's all about, it's your life energy, really. You've just got to spend it wisely.
True. We've touched on sort of creative deals, and you've said it throughout what we've talked about earlier, but what exactly is a creative deal?
So a creative deal, it's really anything that's not the convention. So the traditional way of buying and selling a property, like I said, is quite archaic, really. Now, there's all these different strategies. There's lease options, delayed completions, sandwich lease options. You've got rent-to-rent, SA models, service department models, and things like that, below market value deals. They're all, I call them like tools in your toolkit. So the more strategies you can learn or even know about, you don't need to know them inside out, because even if you've got an inkling of how they work, you can think when you're talking to clients that might work for them, and you can go away and have a look, do a bit of research, maybe even speak to one of your colleagues who's more of an expert in that field, and put a deal together for someone. So it's anything that's, along the creative side of things. So it's quite a broad spectrum, but it's just anything that's kind of not the conventional, transaction of just, sale and completion.
So in what situation would an investor choose not to buy the property at the end of a lease option contract?
So like I said, you've got the right to buy, but not the obligation. So you can pull out of that deal if you want to. So a prime example is if the market's turned slightly, if it's dropped or the price of the property's dropped, then you don't want to complete on that, really. You probably won't be able to, because you won't get the valuation or the mortgage through. And really, anything else, any kind of circumstances that have changed that aren't favorable to you, then at the end of the day, you're there to help people, but not at your expense. So any sort of change in the market, any financial changes, you have got the right to pull out of that property.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't like doing that, but even if you have to, it's not a case, and we brushed on this a moment ago, it's not a case of just pulling out and kind of washing your hands. Go back to the person, explain the situation, just get all the cards on the table and say, look, what can we do? You just never know. There might be some other solution there, and you won't know until you ask and sit down with that person. So again, it's not about ignoring it. Something's changed, just cut it off. Go back to that person, and they might say, "Oh, well, there was a bit of equity in it. I'm willing to maybe sell it a little bit less than what we said." You just never know. So you've got to get it kind of on the table. But yeah, if situations change, you can pull out.
Absolutely. Sometimes when we're looking at deals and different property strategies in our arsenal, people always say you can do no money down deals, that you don't need money. And I've always debunked that and said you absolutely need money in any environment with property, even if it's £1. So, what is some of the costs associated with creative deals or lease options?
Yeah, so the ones you pick up for £1 are incredible. I always laugh when the contract comes through and it says deposit £1. I just find it quite amusing. So there was this thing banded around buying a property for £1. You're controlling it. You're not buying it for £1. You still got to complete, and there's usually a mortgage on it or whatever. But that's sort of one situation. So what was the question again? I've missed my train of thought.
Because what is sort of the lease amount that when you're doing creative deals or lease options, you need a certain amount of money to start off, and it depends on if you're doing a sandwich one, you're sitting in the middle, so you're gaining rather than outlaying. But there is initial cost that you have to think about when you're getting into this type of business strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the ones you pick for £1 are great. That's not often the case, though. Sometimes there's a bit of equity in there, or the owner wants some money out of it. So then, I've done deals where there's more equity in it, but the owners wanted £5,000 out. There's sort of sometimes 20, 25,000. And again, back in the day, I think, why would anyone go for that? But they need £5,000 now, and they'd be happy to sell the property with £5,000 profit in it. So if they're happy with that, and I'm happy to do that, I will give them the £5,000, and then I've controlled the property, and because I know there's more equity in it for me. And doing the tenant buyer model, I'll probably get more than £5,000 in straight away, so that's cleared down, and I'm in profit straight away. But you do sometimes need that cash flow, and if you haven't got it, you can JV with people. If there's any deal with some meat on the bone, there's plenty of people that will put the money in, just to get a return back, even if you need it for a month or so. So, there's lots of deals that are like that. And it's a question of, again, whether you want to go for them or not. Also with, tenant buyers, if you take a property on and maybe you don't find a tenant buyer straight away, you might have to pay that mortgage for a month or two, and the council tax and things like that. So like you said, no strategy is really kind of, free of investing money, even if it's a small amount. But using these, it does limit the amount you have to spend usually on acquiring properties. It's like rent to rents, I suppose. It's a great strategy, but rent to rents, if you're doing that model, you need to furnish them for a start. That's 2, 3, 4, £5,000 depending on the property, which is a big chunk of money. And there's lots of other associated costs. You might want to get involved with different people to do different deals, but there is always money involved. The tenant buyer model, there is obviously less money that you kind of have to outlay if you get it right, which is great. The things with rent to rent as well, I always say this to people, rent to rent and lease options are quite similar. Lease options is just a rent to rent on steroids, really. And all people need to do is ask the landlord or landlady the question, are you looking to sell, in the future? That one question can make you so much more money, because if they are, and you can agree a sale price and get a lease option on that property rather than a rent to rent, you've got so much more control over that. You've got equity locked in. You can transact that property if they give you power of attorney, which they have to really do in those deals. So that one question can earn you a lot more money if you're doing rent to rents. And they might say no, but if they say yes, then it's a massive plus for you.
Where can people learn about how to do creative deals and lease options? Is there sort of anywhere on the YouTube? Do you teach, or how do people go about learning this particular?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have a course now. So I've started teaching people just off the back of people asking me, really. You know, I was asked to be a mentor on a mastermind course. And, you know, obviously, naturally, people would say, oh, you know, could you start teaching me? So I've developed a course that takes people from start to finish, you know, right through the process, which is great. There's also, you know, lots of good stuff online as well. And obviously lots of other good courses as well. So, yeah, there's plenty out there. And it amazes me, really, because lease options and creative strategies, although they've been going for probably 15, 20 years now, if not longer, they're still quite new to the market, you know, historically, and a lot of people still don't know about them or understand them. And they're quite a simple concept to get your head around. And I think what a lot of people do, I mean, I'm not a solicitor, you know, I want to know how a process works, but the point of lease options and creative strategies is it's about people. It's about psychology, really. It's about the questions you ask. And then once the deal is, you know, shaped, you then pass it on to a solicitor. You know, you don't need to get bogged down with like all the details. And there's great. Yeah, that's it. You know, it's good to know the process and the paperwork, but don't worry about the paperwork. The solicitor can sort all that out. It's about tying the deals up and solving people's problems, really.
Yeah. So how would our viewers and listeners be able to get on your course then? What's the details of where they can get your course?
So yeah, what is there somewhere I could leave a link at all?
Yeah,
I can do that. I mean, I can give you you know, an email address as well, and a phone number. You know, people can just contact me or through Facebook.
Yeah.
So I mean, the best email really at the moment is it's Chris at changing and then hyphen and then the word space space.co.uk, and my telephone number is 07947 125 980. And I think I sent you some links as well.
Yes, you did. And we'll be sharing those links with you and giving you further details of how you can contact Chris about his courses on his social media feeds as well. Link with him, Facebook, Twitter, the usual social media contacts, but there definitely will be in our comments as well. And we will definitely be sharing out his details, because we think it's a really good thing for people to really understand that there is different strategies out there that that they could get into with little amounts of money. I'm not saying no money, but little amounts of money, and learn a different strategy that they could enjoy and they could be really good at. Not everyone's cut out for the HMO markets or the buy-to-let markets or the flip markets, but this what we've been talking about today, it really does sing to being in tune with people. And if you're good with people, good with connecting, good with talking and listening, those are the key assets that you need. So Chris, what's the last words that you could leave with our viewers? Any tips or points you would like to share?
Yeah, I suppose, like you just said, you know, lease options and creative strategies are a great thing to learn. You know, they are really flexible. It's not a one size fits all, but it can fit around most situations. So in my opinion, it's, if you're going to learn a strategy or, you know, a genre of strategies, the creative side is, I think, a great route to go down, because it just opens so many opportunities for people. You don't need huge amounts of money to do them. They're very flexible, you know, and you can just really kind of get stuck in and, you know, get the marketing going, then the marketing machine, and you know, just start tying some deals up. So it's just about confidence as well. And like I said, you have to go through the bad appointments. You have to do the work to get good at something. Like anything, you know, a lot of people think they can just read a book or do a course and that they're experts. That's just the very beginning. It's like learning karate or whatever. The black belt. Someone said the other day, being a black belt, everyone's like, wow, that's cool being a black belt. But the instructor said, you just know the basics being a black belt. And it's the same with everything. A lot of people will do a course and they'll think they're the expert, but it's the very start, then you know the basics, and you've got to put the time in there to learn the skill and hone your skills. So definitely worth doing, because I definitely think there's a correction coming to the market. You know, at some point, I think it's inevitable with everything that's going on. Even if there isn't assisted sales, things like that, these creative strategies, you can use them whether the market's going up, down, or sideways. So I think it's a really great time to get involved.
Absolutely. And I always say this, you can always learn the theory, but it's putting yourself in the practical sense and actually getting out there. I mean, we've got years of experience on us. I've been in business 32 years. You've been over 20 odd years doing these kind of deals. So, you know, we've got the years that sits behind us. We've gone through the hills and the gullies, and we've gone through all the the tears and the pulling out of the hair. So we've
Yeah.
got experience alongside actually doing it.
Yeah.
So you can go on the likes of YouTube and sort of Google and search, but you have to put your knowledge into practice. You can't just learn something without actually going out there to test how good you are. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's, you know, we can create courses. We both have courses, which is brilliant, and will help you on your road to doing what you need to do. However, you need to get out there and start pushing yourself.
Yeah.
It's at that point where you feel, oh, I'm going to give up. And it's at that point where that breakthrough will happen. So never give up. Keep on trying, because it will happen for you one of these days. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's about working. And we wouldn't go to work on our normal day and think we're going to get money as soon as we walk in there. We have to fight for it for a whole month before we get paid at the end of it.
So true. Yeah.
You know, so I always say just learn the theory, but put it into practice. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, you've now got me moving in my head and thinking, oh, I need to start doing that again. So thank you for that as well. It's been a pleasure having you on our show today, Chris. So come on, savvy investors, let's take flight. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, download, and definitely share. If you've enjoyed this week's show, please leave your comments below. And we would always share your comments with Chris, so he knows that what you've said about the show and how you've enjoyed it. And we'd also leave his contact details for you, so you can reach out to him to learn how to do creative deals and lease options. It's been an enjoyable show today. Thank you for listening.
This week's episode of the Savvy Property Investors Podcast was brought to you by our sponsor, the Savvy Women Group. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to our website, www.savvywomen.co.uk, to gain access to our free resources and more insights about our guest speaker today. Remember, we make your business our business, so you can unlock your full potential and improve your quality of life.